Hello and welcome to Airheads, a not-so-serious look at the serious business of royal rumours, gossip and gowns. I'm Tom.
And I'm Maeve.
And today we're going to start with some of the most shocking news of the week. For the next few minutes we're going to be talking about Jeffrey Epstein, who was found dead in his cell on Saturday and is said to have killed himself.
Yeah, we're going to get a little bit more serious for a few minutes, and this is quite dark, but it is the top story of this weekend. Epstein had been awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges, and on Friday a whole lot of court documents had been released which detailed claims of a number of high-profile men, including Prince Andrew. We had spoken about Prince Andrew's friendship with Epstein in an episode a few weeks ago called Notes on a Royal Scandal, if you want to go back and listen to that. But the claims included that Andrew had had sex with a girl named Virginia Roberts, who was 17 at the time, and that he had groped a woman named Joanna Schoberg at Epstein's home in Manhattan in 2001. Buckingham Palace have released a statement saying that this relates to proceedings in the United States to which the Duke of York is not a party, and that any suggestion of impropriety with underage minors is categorically untrue. Epstein's death is obviously very devastating for his victims, and one of his victims, Jennifer Arouse, said, "We have to live with the scars of his actions for the rest of our lives. While he'll never have to face the consequences of the crimes he committed, the pain and trauma he caused so many people." But it also is going to have an impact on the other people named in these court documents, and that includes Prince Andrew. On Saturday, there were pictures of Prince Andrew flying into Balmoral, and we also got pictures of Sarah Ferguson. Fergie was flying in separately, and we heard that Beatrice and Eugenie, their daughters, were going to be there too. So you have the whole family there, and it's impossible not to talk about this, right? I mean, what was dinner like yesterday? You know, was it being discussed openly?
Initially we were thinking, is there going to be a kind of collective familial sigh of relief that maybe this story will fade away?
I just can't imagine. I would love to have, to be a bat on the wall when the Queen heard this news. But I have to think that their relief can't have lasted very long, because the papers on Sunday really hit them pretty hard on this, that it's not over. The Daily Mail had quotes from a legal source who was saying that the focus is now going to turn to Ghislaine Maxwell, who was accused of being a procurer of underage girls for Epstein. And the source said, "Ghislaine is the key to all this now that Epstein will no longer face justice himself. The victims deserve answers, and she was the person closest to Epstein." Far from being the end of Prince Andrew's problems, Epstein's suicide can put him under renewed scrutiny because of his close friendship with Ghislaine.
Yeah, because Ghislaine's the one who introduced Andrew to Epstein in the first place, so their relationship must go back a long time.
Yeah, and we don't know what kind of communications they've had over the years. We spoke before about how Epstein had visited Sandringham and had been to the Queen's birthday party and had been to all sorts of things with the royal family, but Ghislaine also attended a number of these royal events. So it'll be interesting to see where the case goes from here and what that means for Andrew and the royal family, because this has got to be the biggest scandal that's ever faced the royal family.
Yeah, I'd say so, and we'll probably hear more about it in the coming weeks, but for now, let's talk about Meghan.
We were just minding our own business on Friday when I got a notification of a new Sussex Royal post, and I opened it to find that gorgeous navy blue they have made their trademark, and atop this navy blue was a quote from Princess Diana. That quote was, "Carry out a random act of kindness with no expectation of reward, safe in the knowledge that one day someone might do the same for you." It had their Sussex Royal branding, the little crest with the H&M and the coronet on top. And then in the caption, they explained that this is going to be a regular thing now on Sussex Royal. They wrote, "Words have the power to inspire, which is why we're happy to share some of our favourite quotes." And oh my god, this is so the Tig.
I know. I mean, the branding is updated.
I feel like this has a lot in common with the... So Meghan used to post a lot of inspirational quotes on her own personal Instagram before she had to shut it down. And she would use layout that she'd made that was white, and underneath it would have the TIG written in her handwriting, her beautiful handwriting. And she, just as they do with the Sussex Royal Post, she would highlight particular words. And she had this very thin, elegant font, and it looks like they are doing a very similar thing with Sussex Royal. But this time, they said they're going to be including quotes from members of the public, public figures, teachers, students, and young leaders.
Yeah, it's like they've reversed the process. It used to be Meghan, member of the public, quoting the famous people, and now here she is throwing the mic back.
And thank God she is, because she posted some gems on her own Instagram account. So back in like 2015, it was a little bit more of that kind of cliche Insta quote, where it had that sort of tea-stained backdrop and a courier font. Things like, don't let the behaviour of others destroy your inner peace. That's one from the Dalai Lama. He's a regular in Meghan's Insta quotes.
I would love to see them post that one.
There are some good ones, I think, that they could reuse, and I'll be keeping an eye out to see if they do. But some of the TIG ones, the more TIGish ones that she did, were a Gandhi quote, be the change you wish to see in the world, and a Maya Angelou one.
I love seeing these quotes from these people, but with the TIG branding.
It's so funny. And like the ones that have an attribution, so there are some that she uses that are just from like a marketer or whatever, but the ones that actually have like a famous person attached to them, she would have to squish their name in between the TIG branding and those inspirational words.
But I mean, as far as I'm concerned, these are TIG aphorisms now.
I am looking forward to see what else they have in store in Meghan's Google Doc of inspirational quotes. I'm sure she's spending much of her maternity leave lining up her faves. And I think she could use this in, taking another page from the Beyonce playbook, that this could be her not so subtle way of responding to some of the controversies that people create around her, and that she could, use the words of the Dalai Lama or, a teacher in Birmingham to respond.
Because, they could say a member of the public said anything.
Yeah. It's totally fine for a man to get a pedicure and not smoke cigarettes, said 8-year-old child in Manchester. Because
that's been one of the big things this week. I thought this was so funny but also kind of depressing at the same time. The Sun reported that ex-army hard man Prince Harry has a guilty secret. He enjoys regular £50 pedicures.
I think this is one of the stupidest stories we've seen in a while. I also don't even know if I think it's real, but anyway, the other headline they used on this was royal toe job, which I think you had some problems with.
Because it's fucking disgusting.
And I had a lot of problems with the pictures they chose to illustrate this, because they did have a picture of him barefoot on a beach further down in the piece, but the lead image was one from when they introduced Archie to the world and Harry was carrying Archie. Is this just further proof that he's soft now?
Yeah, this is look at the pansy prince.
I know. Well, he's actually the petty prince, because Meghan has basically made him a convert to looking after his feet. How dare she? They also...
Sorry, he's definitely not the only person in that family who looks after his feet.
Well, yeah, because actually I was reading a piece about what it's like to work for the royals, and they had a guy who used to be a valet, and that he would have to escort in a beautician to clip Prince Andrew's toenails.
Oh, no!
But anyway, back to Meghan. So obviously it's Meghan's fault, and just to feed into this Meghan the Diva narrative, they also had a source saying that Meghan insists on having the same therapist every time, and that if she's going to have a new therapist doing her treatments, they have to be supervised by someone she's already approved before they're allowed to treat her on their own.
And Harry has apparently taken to this like a duck to water. He loves getting his feet done, and apparently also has massages due to his polo injuries.
Just by activating the right energy points, you can increase circulation alleviate pain, or even render a man unconscious.
I think them getting his feet done isn't, like, that weird, really. Like, I can see...
Do you, Tom? Do you want to elaborate?
Okay, I have just got my first pedicure.
And the beautician said that they often have men in getting pedicures. So
Yeah.
the whole narrative around this story is really wacky. And a lot of it as well has to do with that they go to this spa and they use like a private cottage. It was the same hotel where Harry stayed the night before they got married. And supposedly they bring their dogs and the dogs hang out in the garden while they're getting their treatments. And sometimes Archie comes along as well. But it's expensive, supposedly, that a pedicure starts at £50 and a deluxe massage is £140 for 80 minutes, which isn't the craziest I've seen.
I feel like I can see how this started. I feel like Meghan was going to a nice, like, spa-type retreat place for something and was like, oh, Harry, do you want to come? We'll bring the dogs. And it'd be a nice day out. And they went together. Harry got a massage. They just realised it was a fun thing to do together.
I hated all the quotes from his former military pals. Like, no wonder these people don't hang out with him anymore. I would have fucking dropped them too. They had one military source who said, pedicures and massages, he's changed.
And then somebody else who was, like, just described as a pal, it's no pal of his, said, Harry used to be a proper bloke. Dodgy dress sense, light to drink, and didn't care how he looked. In his army days, he would have laughed if someone had offered him a pedicure. Now he's pontificating about saving the world and doesn't smoke or drink.
What a miserable pal.
I know. Like, he wants this new father to be smoking.
I mean, smoking, but also, like, badly dressed and doesn't care how he looks. I feel like this whole thing is something from, like, 50 years ago. I couldn't really believe it when I was reading the tabloid coverage of it. We learned a little bit more about what Meghan did on her birthday. I don't think we'll ever really know, you know, what exactly she was doing, but supposedly she spent it in Frogmore with Harry and Archie. And she had a birthday cake.
Oh yeah, this was so beautiful. It was a carrot cake by Luminary Bakery, the bakery that she talks about in her issue of Vogue.
Meghan wrote a little handwritten note to this bakery, which is in Stoke Newington and has an amazing Instagram, by the way. And she said, when I knew I would be secretly guest editing the September issue of British Vogue, including Luminary Bakery was a non-negotiable. The work you do, what you represent to the community, the spirit of the women there, you all embody what it means to be forces for change. Thank you for being part of this special project. And it was on that fabulous stationery with the gold M on it. And she also gave them a personalised leather notebook that said Force for Change, which looked like a Smithson notebook to me.
Yeah.
So pretty nice little goodie bag to get from Meghan. Speaking of the Vogue issue, we're continuing to get like good stories following on from this, because it seems like everybody that was involved in it had no idea that Meghan was guest editing. Some of them didn't even know there was a guest editor, and one of them was Jamila Jamil, and she said she only found out a few days before, you know, the rest of the world, because Meghan called her and bloody Jamila Jamil missed the call 3 times.
It was a blocked number, and so, like, I tend to not pick up a phone number that I don't know, but I didn't presume that it was going to be the royal family on the bloody phone, did I?
When she did get through to her, Jamila said that Meghan was warm, kind, and actually very lols.
Which is very lols to describe someone as that. That is so funny.
I like that though, because I don't think we really hear that much about Meghan having a sense of humour. I feel like she has to be very serious and earnest so she never looks like unprofessional while doing her royal duties. So I liked this story where Jamila was talking about how Jamila Jamil is in The Good Place, the very funny comedy on Netflix, and she said Meghan told her that she loved The Good Place, and Jamila said, I then felt immediately embarrassed that she had seen me joke about her on the show. She said she's grateful to Tahani for introducing her to Harry. I just replied, you're welcome.
What would you say in that situation? It's so awkward,
I mean,
but also
over
amazing.
the moon, yeah. But it looks like Meghan's going to be going off the grid for the rest of the month. And we thought she'd be spending her birthday in Balmoral, but actually she's most likely to be going there sometime in the next few weeks. But when she's going to go all trout, according to The Sun, who have another stellar exclusive for us.
So, as if living amongst the batshit of Balmoral isn't enough, she's going to be expected to go fishing with Prince Charles.
There's all this fuss about how Meghan doesn't like hunting and how hunting is such a big part of life in Balmoral, and so she is really excluded from all this. So the way that she's going to try and get back on the Queen's good side, apparently, is by going fly fishing. And they had a royal source telling The Sun, Meghan is a fish eater and will apparently try her hand at fly fishing, which will please Prince Charles, as it was his beloved grandmother's passion. But there will be no softening on Meghan's stance against hunting. Any stag or deer hunting fills her with horror. Venison will not be one of her menu choices for sure. But Meghan's a foodie. Like, first and foremost, one of the main things we know about Meghan and the Tig was that she's a foodie, big foodie. And I bet that foodies love venison.
Of course they do.
I bet she would go wild for venison on a menu. Just
Oh,
as long
yeah.
as she didn't have to
Butcher it herself.
yeah, basically, yeah. But all the stories about this are, again, comparing Kate and Meghan and how Kate would be only too pleased to kill her own venison and plate it up for everybody. Now that we're on the topic of Kate, though, we should get into the big story of the week.
The Battle Royal.
Exactly, Tom. Because Kate and Will were going head-to-head this week in the much-hyped King's Cup Regatta.
This is a sailing race which has a long tradition dating back to George V.
1920 for people that don't know who George
Oh yeah,
is.
sorry. But it's been revived by the Cambridges as a vehicle for raising money for 8 charities this time. So there were 8 boats and each one was captained by a representative from different charities. Will was representing Child Bereavement UK and Kate was representing the Royal Foundation. They were joined by some other celebrities and athletes and Bear Grylls, who I guess is kind of a mixture of the two.
And Bear Grylls was the winner.
Of course he was.
You know, it wasn't Will and it certainly wasn't Kate, because even though she is supposedly a very experienced sailor, having learned to sail as a child, she not only lost, she was disqualified because her boat crossed the starting line too early and she was supposed to go back, but she just carried on regardless.
So this is where your knot tying expertise comes from.
I think she thought she'd get away with it, but she'd forgotten that she'd commissioned a dinghy filming Kensington Royal Instagram stories to be circling around, so I'm sure they noticed something.
I really like that when her boat finally crossed the finish line, the race commentator said, Duchess of Cambridge, great job. Unfortunately disqualified. Right to the point.
I feel like the that person's like a real Republican. I'm just like, had the best time saying that.
Well, that person saw her cheating and was just waiting to bark at her. You're disqualified, Kate. Will's team placed third. But as we said, it was Bear Grylls' team who were representing the charity Tusk Trust who came in first. But, you know, Bear Grylls aside, there was one member of the team that I couldn't take my eyes off, and that was the former Irish Taoiseach Enda Kenny, who was one of the sailors on Bear Grylls' team. So apparently he is a supporter of this charity Tusk Trust, and that's how he landed himself on this very special royal day out. But, you know, this isn't the first time he's been hobnobbing with the hot young royals.
Once you notice him, you start seeing him in all these photos.
I cannot believe he has managed to wedge himself into these situations not once but twice. Because last year there were pictures of him hanging out with Harry and Meghan at a charity polo match last year in Windsor. So he basically has some kind of strategy where he supports the charities that are going to get him the closest to the royals. I can just imagine Leo Varadkar sitting at home clutching a pair of novelty socks with crowns on them, furiously scrolling through these pictures of Enda and Harry and Meghan and Kate and Will.
But speaking of novelty, Kate did get a novelty prize.
It was a whopper.
It was a massive wooden spoon. I can't tell if this is like a traditional kind of runner-up or loser prize.
Is this like an in-joke for like
Sailing.
posh sailing people?
I have no idea, but she looked so funny holding it. I bet George and Charlotte loved it.
I mean, I loved it. Kate with her wooden spoon of shame, which was the prize designated for the captain whose team finished dead last. I liked how the Telegraph described it. They said, if the famously competitive Duchess hoped to show her children how mummy can beat daddy at sport, she was sadly mistaken, left with a giant wooden spoon as her team was disqualified.
It's really surprisingly catty from the Telegraph.
I know. I also liked the response from the compere when Kate was being presented with her spoon. She was like shaking her head, and he reportedly said, "This is the first time the Duchess has ever finished last in anything, I can guarantee. So you'd better enjoy it because it will never happen again."
So Kate stepped off the boat, put 50 quid in this guy's hand and was like, we need to change the narrative.
I wouldn't necessarily accept that this is the only time Kate has finished last. But, you know, is she going to have to wait till next year to get her revenge on Will?
Suddenly, the King's Cup becomes like a best of 3.
They certainly went very loud on social with this. We got a lot of Instagram posts, tweets.
I don't think Kate was expecting to lose. I think that's why we got such a big
I thought,
trial.
though, they handled it well. They posted like some funny pictures of Kate with her head in her hands, and they had a little caption, "It's the taking part that counts," with a spoon emoji. They have really stepped up their Insta game since Sussex Royal branched out, haven't they?
They did this amazing video for social media of like these drone shots of the boats at kind of full speed, with this really good song, which I think if you listen carefully you can hear Prince William putting down the vocals for this.
The whole video is very generic. Like, it just looks like some kind of like travel ad for, you know, sailing. Like, it could be anybody on those boats.
Honestly, you couldn't tell who anybody was. It could have been a completely different race. It could have been a different event. It's very difficult when everyone's got life jackets on and like a hat.
But this was their first go. I'm pretty sure that's their first Instagram live, and definitely the first video of this kind of production value that we've seen from Kensington Royal. So, you know, they can grow from here. But it's an interesting new chapter in their social outreach. But listen, nobody was looking at Instagram because everybody was looking at the pictures of Prince George and Princess Charlotte.
It was difficult to take your eyes off that gap-tooth grin.
Yeah, we got an important dental update on the future king. We saw in his birthday portraits that he's been losing some teeth, and now he's lost the big players. The 2 front teeth are gone.
And you're very worried that they're never going to come back.
I'm just looking forward to when I can take a peek at them at the V&A someday in the near future, I hope.
He's now going to get those massive Will teeth. Mark my words.
In his tiny little boy head.
Yeah. But they were both turned out, both George and Charlotte, in stripy nautical themed outfits.
Kate just loves a themed outfit. Like, she showed up wearing sailor pants, basically. Like, she will find any excuse to bring buttons into an outfit. Yeah. And in this case, it was these navy, would you call them culottes? cropped trousers. They were more ankle length, but they had these big white nautical buttons on them. And then people were trying to sell the top she was wearing as being nautical striped, but that thing was some kind of boho nightmare. It was like a crop top, shades of orange and red and navy, with a frill and a little frill peplum on the end. But it was Sandro, so it probably cost like £200. I wanted to talk about what George and Charlotte were wearing, which was even more nautical stripes and yet another H&M polo shirt. Oh my god, I would love to know if this is having any impact on H&M polo shirts.
I would like to know how sustainable H&M polo shirts are.
Let's not pin that on George. We should instead talk about his grandparents, Michael and Carol Middleton, who were looking after George and Charlotte for the day, and just like the last time they were looking after them, they took them to a local fair.
For a change.
I mean, I thought the crockery smash and the bouncy castle and all that was A+, but this just took it to another level. Because again, we had a theme.
There was a whole pirate theme to this fair. You could learn how to be a pirate with Pirate Pete.
Believe it or not, George and Charlotte's team, which went by the name the Scallywags, won the tug of war.
I think it's important that we find out whether or not George and Charlotte picked the name Scallywags or if it was some really annoying adult.
Carol Middleton.
Carol Middleton calling them Scallywags. Because if George uses words like Scallywags, that's weird.
Pirate Pete was the children's entertainer, and he had a lot to say. He was blabbing away to the press, but in character, of course.
Yeah. So he said, we've got a fine bunch of buccaneers on our hands. Us pirates, we're not used to hanging around royalty. We're not usually best friends. But I've had a good day recruiting some new pirates. It looks like we've got a pirate king on our hands. Given his explosive temper, I'm a bit worried about what Pete went on to say. But he agreed that the royal children had a natural aptitude for piracy and said that they were trying to steal my weapons. And there were some good pirate faces being pulled. I mean,
believe that.
Pretty much every face that George makes with his current dental setup is a pirate face.
Aww.
But this explosively tempered child stealing weapons.
Do you think when he says they were really charming and excitable, is excitable a euphemism?
Yeah, that is like, I'm sure anyone who works with kids is like, yeah, that means they're a nightmare. Excitable means I had a horrible time.
But, we sadly didn't get to see all this pirate play, but we did get a little glimpse of Charlotte after the race. Kate brought George and Charlotte to a window above the stage where the prizes were being handed out and was encouraging Charlotte to wave to the crowds, but she didn't do it. She stuck her tongue out instead.
I think this is what comes of leaving your children in the company of pirates for a day.
People absolutely loved it. There's a video on Twitter of the crowd's reaction when they saw Charlotte sticking that tongue out, and they, the word erupt is really the only apt word in this situation, because they just burst into cheers and applause. I
mean, I think she's very savvy. There was a point where she was the infant royal wave queen because she did an iconic wave, and then Louis come along, he did the double wave, he nearly knocked Camilla's hat off at Trooping the Colour. She knows she's got competition, but this generation of royals haven't done the sticking the tongue out yet.
So she's got another year at least to make it her own.
Yeah, she's a trendsetter.
But not everybody was a fan of this, were they, Tom?
Always delighted to see Judy James's work, and this week is absolutely no disappointment. She was talking to The Sun, and she had some thoughts on this. She said, Grandma Carol looks as though she might be thinking of nipping this playful naughtiness in the bud. Carol needs to proceed with caution, though, as she might be on dodgy ground laying down any rules about tongue poking, as one of the royal family's most avid fans of this pose was Charlotte's dad, William, when he was her age.
Well, I'm sure Carol is going to take that advice to heart.
I'm sure this absolutely wasn't lost on Carol because she has an unusually close relationship with Will.
This is another story in The Sun recently which had a great headline. Lappy Chappy. Can you guess what that might be referring to? Apparently, according to a royal insider, Will used to lie on the couch with his head on Carol Middleton's lap when he would visit Kate at her family home.
I'm a little baby.
It's such a massive red flag.
The way this royal expert, her name is Ashley Pearson, she talks about how close Will was to both Carol and Michael Middleton. And the contrast between these two behaviours is startling. So she says, he would lie on the couch with his head in the lap of Mrs. Middleton, or he would sit after dinner and talk for hours with Mr. Middleton. I mean, one of these things is not like the other.
Yeah, it looks like Michael got off pretty lightly.
I was reminded this week of a story that ran in the Daily Mail a few years ago. I think it was in 2007, after Kate and Will had broken up briefly. And they were talking about Weighty Katie and how Carol was very hands-on in trying to get their relationship back on track, and that people reported that she had a picture of Will as the background on her mobile phone.
It's so weird.
If that isn't a deal breaker, then, I mean, what grown man is going round to your mom's house and just putting his feet up on the couch and his head up on your mom's lap? You're not a baby, you're a man!
No.
We've also got a little bit of an update on the Turnip Toffs.
There was a great piece in Town and Country magazine this month that gave us a bit of an insight into the Turnip Toff set up in Norfolk.
They sent a journalist called Simon Osborne down there basically to find out anything he could about the Rose Hanbury drama. Apparently they were quite shaken by this. I really like though how he sets the scene in this piece, because he starts off by kind of recapping the rumours about Rose and Kate's falling out, but then he describes going to visit one of England's grandest homes, and an equerry makes the request of him that he please address Lady Leicester as Lady Leicester. But like, even better than that is that she has a parrot called Basil that she has kept in the bird cage for the day. Usually the parrot flies free, but she tells the journalist, I put him away because I didn't know if you were bald or not. He doesn't like bald men. What a perfect little anecdote. He did get a few little glimpses of stuff related to Kate and Will. So he talked to like an antique dealer that had served Kate a few times, and that she had bought a rug there and there was a big hole in it, and apparently the dealer said Kate was like, oh, I'll just put a bit of furniture over it, and that she like doesn't do haggling or anything. Like, I mean, imagine the story, like Kate like haggling with this antiques dealer. But they really didn't want to talk about Rose at all. Yeah,
to the extent that this piece describes it as a code of omertà across Norfolk.
It's exactly right, isn't it?
It's so funny. I really liked how it was put in the piece. They said that the gentlest inquiry is shot down faster than an overweight partridge.
I mean, it sounds like it. Like, immediately when he asks this Lady Leicester, she says, it's a load of bollocks. And then he asks another guy and he says, there are more interesting things to talk about. And another woman rolls her eyes so hard they nearly fall out.
I reckon Lady Leicester had like an elastic band around the parrot's beak so that it wasn't like blabbing all the secrets.
Even he's like a little bit skeptical as to whether it's denial or discretion, but it seemed pretty clear to me that this was something they all knew a lot about and had all talked about, and it was more a matter of protecting their own.
This is a group of people who are like, we'll just keep quiet for 15 years and then carry on. You know.
But you know, we've been talking a lot about the power of words, and I want to know, Tom, what were the most powerful words that you heard this week?
So my quote of the week comes not from a member of the royal family, but from Bear Grylls, who, competing at the King's Cup regatta, added to his winning speech and said, "And also, Prince George, your first ant you ate today, and that is a great moment. Well done you. What a guy."
What a guy.
It has so many things that I'm obsessed with, because Prince George ate an ant.
Great news.
Which is great news. But the phrasing of it, "your first ant you ate today," is
very
unusual.
off the cuff.
It's a charming phrasing of it. And yeah, what a guy. What a guy.
Well done, Prince George.
Well done you.
I can't wait to see what he eats next, especially without his 2 front teeth.
I want to know, what's your fit for a king or fit for a queen?
I think we probably have different ones this week, because I was just so dazzled by Kate's sea legs that I have had eyes for no one else.
And you've been waiting so long to see those legs. When was the last time you saw them?
I think it was actually 11 years ago. According to all the tabloids, the last and reportedly only time Kate has worn a pair of shorts in public was back in September 2008. Can you guess where she was, Tom, when she wore a pair of shorts? I don't think in a million years I would ever have guessed that she wore them to attend a Dayglow midnight roller disco party in London.
Did Will go?
I have no idea. I do know she wore absolutely thick as hell tights with them, so
Not
it
the case
doesn't
this
really
time.
count. Yeah, this time she had that mustique tan and she wanted to flaunt it, and I'm thrilled that she did.
It was weird that she wore the roller skates on the boat, though.
This was, so after she wore that sort of sailor costume when she arrived with the frilly hippie top, she changed into a sporty Kate outfit. And I like this because I remember pictures of Kate from early in her marriage to Will when she would wear like a skirt suit or like a little shift dress with those, you know, chunky platform patent heels or a pair of big wedges. Like, there's like a picture of her playing croquet in those heels and the little pencil skirt, and you're just thinking like, oh god, this looks so unnatural. And now she's really embraced that sporty side, which she obviously really excels in.
It was cool, but it wasn't my fit for a king.
Go on then.
Mine was future king Prince George, him of the gap-toothed smile, wearing a captain's hat and badge that said captain.
Like, you didn't think that H&M polo shirt could get any better, but strap on a life jacket and give him a badge and a hat and he's a whole new man. Together, our picks were Cap and Kate and her gappy little mate.
So it brings us on to our first in line.
Who's it going to be, Tom?
I'm going to stick with George. Because I love when he goes to a local fair. I love that he has no
Just so
teeth.
happens to win any competition he enters.
Yeah, his dad could take a little leaf out of that book.
Yeah, I'm thrilled that he's been gobbling up ants with Bear Grylls. What a life. I mean, tennis lessons with Roger Federer and ant feasts with Bear Grylls.
So, what have we got coming up next week?
Well, it looks like this week could be potentially very quiet. So if that's the case, we're thinking of doing a special episode, one that we had been planning to do for Megan's birthday before the Vogue dropped. So we hope you come back and join us then. In the meantime, you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at AirheadsPod and on Facebook at Airheads.
If you like the episode, please give us a rating, leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love to read them.
And have a great week. Thanks, guys.
Bye.